Few athletes throughout the entire history of college football have had seasons comparable to the level that Ashton Jeanty was playing at last year. Not only did he manage to run for over 2,000 yards, but he came close to Barry Sanders' single-season record. Few were surprised when the Raiders decided to draft him at pick number 6. But after a somewhat rough start due to limited production, both in statistical output but also in how many times he's being given the ball, media talking heads like Ryan Clark have promptly decided that in week 2 or 3 of the NFL season, Jeanty is now officially a bust. They claim that he doesn't have an it factor, whatever that could mean. Not only is this false, but it also goes to show the importance of actually watching football instead of basing our opinions off of a box score. Ashton Jeanty serves as the ultimate demonstration of how crucial the eye test really is, because not only does he possess an it factor, but he looks even scarier than many fans originally thought. To fully break down this entire situation, we have to first take a look at what Ashton Jeanty has actually done so far. In week 1, despite 19 carries, he admittedly struggled statistically, with only 1 touchdown and 38 rushing yards. Then in week 2, Jeanty managed to rack up 43 yards on 11 carries. While still not at his best, it is an improvement from the week prior, putting him at 3.9 yards per carry. In week 3, he managed to stack up 63 yards on a high-volume 17 carries. Again, these are not really numbers that are going to jump off the page, but I don't understand why some fans have jumped on these 3 weeks as the end-all be-all for Jeanty's entire career. Despite him admittedly not putting up the same ridiculous numbers that he did at Boise, that is to be expected. The difference between Mountain West and NFL defense is a significant leap, and while I believe that Jeanty eventually will start to excel, learning moments like these are to be encouraged. A perfect example of this reactionary mentality can be found in some of the criticism sent Jeanty's way over one really bad pass protection rep. In my opinion, for running backs, that is often where they struggle the most coming out of college. Even Travion Henderson, who was originally praised for his ability as a third down back, has not had his best moments in pass protection so far. With the types of stunts and weird creative blitzing that takes place in the NFL, there is always going to be a process to get up to speed. That's just the nature of the separation between the college and pro game. Running back just ends up being one of those positions that is affected heavily. Many fans forget that oftentimes flashes of greatness matter a lot more than statistical output in year 1. Derrick Henry did not have his first 100-yard rushing game till midway through his second season. On that note, it is way too early to rule out any prospects simply because their numbers might not match the insane stats they were able to put up in college. That's including Omarion Hampton and the aforementioned Travion Henderson. As they all get more comfortable, but especially Jeanty on third down passing situations, they get kept on the field for more reps, and it changes the way that defenses have to approach them. Part of the reason for Jeanty's underwhelming statistical performances come from a coaching perspective as well. With Darwin James being the key figure on this secondary and the missing presence of Khalil Mack, you'd figure this was an opportunity for the Raiders to pound the rock and keep the defense honest. Instead, they swung and missed on deep shots against one of the best passing defenses in the league and failed to ever mount any consistency on the offensive side of the ball. The Chargers stay in a too-high shell for practically the entire game, so the game plan here was more than just a little bit confusing. One of my favorite moments came from when Jeanty spun off a tackle from Darwin James. There are not many running backs capable of doing that, and you want to see him get the ball more to grow experience in these situations. That's just the inner fan in me though. Jeanty is a super exciting player, and watching that gave me a lot of hope about what he's going to be able to do going forward. But I do understand where Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll are coming from after they clarified their load management approach. It has become very clear that they understand the same issue as us. There's a Ferrari engine in Ashton Jeanty right now, but that's being sat in a complete rust bucket of an offensive line and team in general. There is a lot of room for improvement, so instead of running Jeanty into the ground, they had to make a lot of hard decisions about playing time, and that's understandable. What completely loses me though is the questionable decision to leave their offensive line mostly untouched this offseason. The only additions were free agent Alex Kappa and rookie Caleb Rogers, who will likely compete for a starting spot on the interior throughout the season. They're going to go back and forth, it's only inevitable. A good example of the struggles this team is facing can be found in right tackle DJ Glaze being a huge question mark. His 8.3 pressure rate allowed marked him 30th out of 34 players in the position. This offensive line is just flat out terrible. They have done a horrible job blocking for Jeanty, and most of the time he ends up getting hit before the line of scrimmage. It's pretty crazy to think about. If week 2 is a sign of anything, teams just don't respect the Raiders' offense. They're not scared, and despite a statistically impressive performance against a struggling Patriots team, there is no reason to be. Jakobi Meyers is solid, but with Brock Bowers injured, the passing game poses no real threats for a credible defense. Out of all running backs with over 100 rushing yards or more, Jeanty has managed to rank dead last in yards before contact, but first in broken tackles. Jeanty has always been great after contact, but he's taken it to new levels in the NFL. On the season, he has 144 rushing yards. Of those yards, 101% of them come after contact. That's right, he has more rushing yards after contact than not. That is so wild to think about and goes to show how grossly mismanaged his situation is being. Before the NFL allowed everyone on Twitter to get their hands on heat maps and all these stupid charts, in the good old days, the number one sign of greatness is what players were actually capable of doing on the field, not some uber-specific PFF stat that's buried on a next-gen website. And not gonna lie, I miss that. I miss when we could watch someone as good as Jeanty get his chance to explode through the defense without having to worry about his yards per carry or the technical percentage of offensive line win rate. The film doesn't lie. It's stupid to take one big rush and act like that was his entire output for the entire game, but there were multiple plays where Jeanty didn't have exceptional blocking or play design. It was a demonstration of what he's capable of doing more consistently than other running backs. In terms of his offensive line's production, they don't need to be great. They just need to be a little bit above average. If the Raiders' coaching and management want to see Jeanty put up the numbers that everyone wants him to, they need to be able to build this up. While this analogy is a little bit out there because obviously the offensive line matters a ton to quarterbacks, I view the way a QB like Joe Burrow connects with his receiver Jamar Chase similar to how a running back has a connection with the offensive line. Now obviously any quarterback almost needs an offensive line if they're going to succeed, but I don't mean it like that. It's more just in terms of the connection between the two worlds. The ground attack is often a numbers game, and if the offensive line can't at least balance the scale, we have a problem. And that's what stands out to me most about the Raiders' current situation. I think a similar lack of eye test can be seen in a lot of discussion about Cam Ward. He struggled big time against the Broncos statistically, barely completing 40% of passes and throwing for just over 100 yards with no touchdowns, but the Denver defense was amazing and completely smothered all of his weapons. I think I could count on one hand the amount of times Ward received a clean pocket. His receivers couldn't really do anything, and there was no run game to give anyone relief. There were several dropped passes that ultimately sealed the team's fate, but on a surface level, without watching that game, you'd be right to assume Ward was terrible out there. But with context provided, he really did seem comfortable in the face of an elite defense, making me a little more positive about his upside as a longtime NFL quarterback. Without sounding like too much of a conspiracy theorist, I have this feeling, without any evidence to really back it up, but just from what I've learned discussing football, that most people commenting on the NFL don't actually watch as many games as you'd think they do. Information and stats are available at the click of a button, and even those that used to be typically seen as more advanced or only relevant from a coaching perspective have now made their way into the mainstream. Jalen Hurts is a perfect example. If you look at his production statistically, outside of his great performance in the comeback against the Rams, you'd see a lot of alright stats. But if you actually watch what he does, you can tell that what he provides is more than just statistical output. His strength is his control of the game, the leadership and collectedness that he brings. On the contrary, there are some Eagles fans that believe he's the greatest quarterback ever, capable of Lamar-esque performances. We had a discussion with someone who believed that instead of being a good manager in the system that Sirianni has him running, the system is actually built around him instead of Saquon. The same way that the Eagles are nowhere near being Hurts ball is the same way that Jeanty is not a bust. What we can rely on above all else, above all the statistics and the charts and the heat maps, is what we can see with our own two eyes. Thanks for watching DNA Sports. We have a great slate of videos coming up, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single upload, and we'll see you in the next one.